got some great Little League tips from Joe. You know, I was thinking back in the day, I'd always get a couple little tips, you know, I was coaching my Little League team. You know, don't show them you're nervous, Brandon. Trouble, you know.
Just change your shirt a lot, right?
Yeah. Don't show them you're nervous. How are you? How
I'm
you
good.
feeling?
I'm good. It's just been busy. You know, every time. Thank you. Every time somebody gets knocked down, I got more work to do. You know, so.
You look marvelous. You're staying healthy. How do you do it?
Well, I'm still working a lot, which helps. It keeps you from thinking about how old you are. And then there's no stress, because it's not like trying to win or lose, you know, trying to win ball games, you know. So
just find them.
Yeah, no, that's just find them. Somebody else's issue. I watch all these managers get upset, and I say, boy, am I glad I'm not doing that anymore. Because I'm trying to be the voice of reason, and you know, they're irrational like I was, and it's nice seeing it from the other side.
How's Safe at Home doing? How's your charity? You've done an amazing job. It's grown. It just seems like it's now something that's going to be now relevant for many years to come.
Well,
what's going on there?
Thank you. It's so important. You know, I grew up in an environment. My dad abused my mom, and it affected me. And I didn't realize that was why I had certain feelings of inadequacy. And you know, it was only through some counseling that I realized that was causing some of my issues. So we just provide safe rooms in schools for youngsters to talk about it, let them know it's not their fault and they're not alone, and they can share it, and we sort of give them some coping skills and stuff like that. So I'm very proud of it. It's been over 10 years now, and you know, we're definitely entrenched in the New York area, and we have 2 schools open in Los Angeles now. So we're.
And your wife's kind of quarterbacking that still?
Oh God, she's. I'll tell you, you know, that stuff didn't go on in her family. You know, she's one of 16 children, so she had a lot of company over there. But yeah, she's just so good at just making sure everything's on track. In fact, we have a fundraiser on day after the All-Star game. We have a golf tournament
tennis
at Sleepy Hollow. Tennis and golf at Sleepy Hollow, and you know, we'll raise some money, hopefully, you know, get us an opportunity to open another school here in the New York area. It's
great stuff. And to find out more about it, the website is
joetorre.org.
That's cool. I got to ask you, just, I think we were talking a couple months back, what do you do all day at Major League Baseball? What's like a typical day? How's that going to work?
Well, there is no typical day. I mean, it's the one thing I found, though, when you're you know, when you're managing a team, you know, there's some Thursdays and some Mondays you have off. But when you're in my job, there are no off days. I mean, weekends are a little quieter because normally you wait for it to pile up and then do it on Monday. But there's just a lot of issues. Obviously, the umpires take a lot of time. You know, we're trying to improve that relationship with the uniformed personnel and the umpires, because the one thing I found, and maybe toward the end of my managing career, you know, you start realizing and become a little more understanding of the umpire's plight. You know, they don't have a home base. They do the best they can. They make mistakes, and now with the technology where it is,
there's zoning in 100 times over.
I mean, yeah, obviously, you know, people think that that's all they do is make mistakes, because they're always, you know, the replay where it's interesting. I'm watching this one game on TV, and there was a play at first base, and the announcer said, "Boy, that was a bang bang play." Now, bang bang play means it was very close, could have gone either way. Well, they show the replay, and they have the slow-mo, and they have the whole thing, and then they realize that the umpire missed a call, and they're saying, how could he miss that call? But meanwhile, they called it a bang-bang play before they saw the replay. The umpires don't see that replay until later on when they're laying in bed, you know. But the one thing we're trying to improve is have the players understand that they try very hard. It kills them when they make a mistake. and yet they have to exercise authority, so it looks like they don't care a lot of times, and or they're bullying the players.
They can't change their mind. Right?
Well, you know,
or can they?
We can, if there's an obvious miss, we certainly have changed it to the point of having them huddle, and if one of the other umpires see it a little bit better, you know, where the one umpire may be blocked out on a play at first base or something, they have the ability to change it. So.
Could we see like an NFL kind of thing where our manager has a couple of those red flags? Could we maybe see that in the future?
Well, you know, that's one of the things we're talking about. We, you know, in all likelihood, we're hopeful of having replay next year. And you know, how we're going to trigger it is still in conversation right now. So you know, we'll have to figure out. Obviously, if our goal is to get every single play right, you may have to time these games with a calendar, because it would take a long time.
Yep.
And I think the one thing that we have to understand is that the game isn't perfect, life isn't perfect, and you know, as long as, and in 162 games, I'm of a mind that, you know,
it's going to balance out.
it's somewhat balanced out.
You were always cordial. I mean, you were never like a crazy manager.
Oh, early on there, that was before video, so it was good. Nobody got a chance to see that stuff, you know. Oh yeah, I did some embarrassing things, and embarrassing to me, maybe not somebody else, but embarrassing to me.
Now, well, you know, with age, you know, but as a Yankee manager, I always thought you were pretty cool, calm.
Yeah, I was, and that used to aggravate Steinbrenner, because he wanted you to go out there and scream.
No question.
So.
Your catching days. Mm-hmm. Big talker behind the plate, quiet, or Sometimes, you know, you'd have a conversation with some players that come up. You've seen some of the great ones, right?
Yeah, I did, and I just spent a little time last Friday. I was in I was in San Francisco watching the Dodgers play the Giants, and you know, Willie Mays was at the ballpark, and Willie is, you know, he's still electric for me. And
one of the greatest you've ever seen?
One of the most exciting I've ever seen. You know, I played with Hank Aaron for 8 years, and I think Henry could do probably everything that Willie could do, except he didn't do it with the flair that Willie did it with. And Willie was talking, we were talking about throwing, you know, guys out, and, you know, when we're in spring training, we teach our outfielders to hit the cutoff man. I mean, that's hit the cutoff man. Willie didn't believe in it. He threw it all the way to the catcher or the third baseman, and he did a pretty good job of it. But he is so dynamic. I remember one time though, he's hitting, and you always try to distract. You know, I know Yogi used to do it all the time. You know, he had this conversation, and I was talking to Willie, and I asked him a question. And as he was answering it, he hit a ball out of the ballpark. and so I learned from that. You know, that's one thing. I felt I was smart enough to learn from your mistakes, and then I did that. And I remember Yogi, and I know this is one of the old Yogi-isms out there, that one of the catchers said to Yogi, and he was up there hitting, he says, you're hitting with the label up. He says, I'm up here to hit, not to read.
Yeah, I love that.
But, you know, I did some talking. McCarver, I used to aggravate him. I didn't mean it at first, and then I did it purposely. You know, I talk about the weather, and he said, well, what am I, a meteorologist? You know, he'd step out of the batter's box. This is before we became friends, but...
Did you catch Gibson?
I did.
What was that like?
I caught Gibson. Well, I got to tell you, I caught Gibson before I caught Gibson, because you know, when I was in 1965, I was the starting catcher for the All-Star game in Minnesota, and Bob was the last pitcher coming in. We had this 5-0 lead, the National League, and then the American League caught up, tied it up. We scored, went ahead. Bob Gibson came in to pitch the 9th inning. So, first hitter is Tony Oliva, who he won a number of batting titles, left-hand hitter, and most of your left-hand hitters like to hit the ball, the low ball better than they do the high ball. So it was strike one, strike two, and I remember I'm debating with myself. I want a fastball, and I want it up in here, and not to knock anybody down, but there's a sort of a blind spot for some left-handers up that high. And I said, should I just signal it, or should I go talk to him? So I decided to go talk to him. Well, you have to understand, I didn't realize it at the time. I went out to talk to him. I said, Bob, I said, I want this fastball up and in, not down and in. Well, he looked right through me like I wasn't even there. Never responded to me. Okay? You know, you sort of went back behind the plate. He threw a ball down and in and hit a double left center field. Strikes out the next three guys. Game is over. Just so happens we're the last two in the shower. And I said, nice pitching, Bob. And it was like I wasn't even there, just completely. Well, I come to find out that he never talked to anybody that wasn't on his regular team. In other words, if you were a Cardinal and playing in the All-Star game with him, he would talk to you. But if I had a Brave uniform on, he wouldn't talk to me, unless I was a pitcher, and then he would talk to all the pitchers. So I found that out, and, you know, again, he'll be in for my golf tournament, but I'm still in the process of getting even with him being such a jackass.
Now, how was Hank to play with?
Hank was great. He was quiet. He was very quiet, Henry. Never, you know, never said much. All he did was speak with his bat, you know, and he he was a great player. I've never seen anybody who developed. When you talk about, when I first saw Hank, and I was a teenager, because my brother Frank played with him from 1956 on. I got to the big leagues in 1960, 61. Henry Aaron hit mainly to right field and right center field as a right-hand hitter. And as he gained more and more experience, then you know, he became this home run hitter. Even though he could hit home runs, he really wasn't this home run hitter because he'd hit the ball always to the biggest part of the ballpark. But you know, when he took certain liberties, when he got to know pitchers, he was unbelievable. He was I think it was Kurt Simmons, a left-hand hitter, said trying to slip a fastball by Hank Aaron was like, you know, getting the sun past the rooster. You couldn't do it. Yeah. And he was quite a player. He was quite a player.
Now, Bob Watson, who I had an opportunity to interview a few weeks ago, we did a little rivalry dinner with the Dodgers, and he said that, you know, when he was the general manager, it was his idea. He went to George and said, you know, we got to hire Joe Torre. Possible?
That he went to Georgia and did that? Yeah, sure, it's possible. I mean, you know, Bobby and I had a relationship as players. You know, we had mutual respect. We were the same type of hitter. You know, neither one of us could run, and we always had the same philosophy on hitting. So to hit the ball inside out, which means we hit a lot of balls through the middle and a lot of line drives. You know, neither one of us were, you know, big home run hitters, but you know, we were good hitters. And so we always sort of had this common bond when we'd see each other. So
I mean, the city was taken by, shocked when you know when your name got called. You were like, what? Oh
yeah. Well, you know, my winning percentage was like 100 games under. Yeah. You know, 500. You know, I had managed the Mets, and I had.
That usually is enough to do it.
Yeah. Well, I managed the Braves. At that time, it was. I managed the Braves. You know, and we had a couple of winning seasons. Then the Cardinals, we didn't do too well, and I don't know. Not too many people know this, but initially, before I was asked if I'd be interested in managing the team, I was interviewed to be the general manager. And at the time, my wife was at that time was about 7 months pregnant with our daughter, and you know, I said, "Is there any vacation?" You know, and he said no. So I said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this. My wife's pregnant, and I don't know if I know enough about being a general manager." So I left.
At that time, right?
I was. Actually, no. I had just gotten fired by the Cardinals. And I was doing some broadcasting for the end of the year, but this was after the season was over. And in October or late September, I interviewed with Stick Michael down in Florida, and you know, and then about 10 days later, they called to see if I'd be interested in managing, and I was put on this list with. Lucky for me that these other people had jobs already, so it was good. It was
luck.
good.
Well, luck is always part of it, right?
You've got to have some luck.
But talking about luck, 96. And maybe it's luck, maybe it's not. But I just got to find out where you have the insight and the nerve. You're down 2-0, and you're like, "We're coming back." You know
That's what I told Steinbrenner.
Yeah, I mean, where's what were you thinking, and did you really believe that?
Well, first off, I have to admit, I did not even get nervous in that World Series until we were going out to play Game 6, to be honest with you.
Really?
Because
Game 6 could have gone almost...
Because this is, I'm riding this bonus wave right here. You know, I've got this job that I never thought I'd ever have. I had never been, I mean, I come to find out later on after we won the World Series, that I held the record for the most games in uniform, both as a player and a manager, without ever getting to the World Series. And it was over 4,000 games, or some crazy thing like that. So, in fact, it felt like 8,000 games. But, so, you know, I was sort of giddy. We got to the World Series. You know, I wasn't crazy about playing against Baltimore again for the championship series. Based on the fact that we had beaten them like 11 out of 13 games during the course of the year. It was crazy. We just completely had their number.
Yep.
And so after we lost Game 1, we got killed in Game 1. Pettit, you know, and Andrew Jones had 2 home runs in the game. They beat us big time. George walks in to my office before Game 2, and he said, "This is a must game." And I said, "Well, yeah, no kidding." Yeah. I mean, it's a 7-game series, you know, and we're down 1. But I was just goofy enough, and I said, "George," I said, "we may even lose tonight." And I felt, I didn't feel confident for that night because, you know, we clinched on I think it was Sunday. We clinched on a Sunday in Baltimore, and we did not start the World Series till the following Sunday. So we had a week off, which was suicide. I mean, because I didn't know what to do. I mean, I just practiced, you know, give them a day off, practice. Didn't want to do simulated games and stuff because somebody's going to get hurt. I know somebody's going to get hurt. So we were flat. We were flat. So I said, "George, we hadn't played in 8 days." I said, and you know, they're pitching Maddox. I said, "We may lose tonight." I said, "But we're going to Atlanta. That's my town. We'll win 3 there, and we'll come back and win the thing for you on Saturday night." And I walked out of the office. That's exactly what happened. But But I was so giddy at that point in time. You know, the fact that I'm in the World Series, and I'm in the World Series. In fact, Tom Verducci, you know, we know him now from MLB and Sports Illustrated, great writer. In fact, he wrote two my books with me, and he flew down. He just happened to fly down with George to Atlanta, and George was talking to him about, "Gee, I hope we win 1 game so we don't get embarrassed." You know, because that's, you know, we're down 2-0, and you're going to the other guy's hometown, and they're the world champs and stuff. So it worked out great. It was, I'm blessed. I mean, there's no question. I just was blessed with some great players that didn't know what the word quit meant, you know, and it was terrific.
Because even in Game 4.
We were down 6-0.
Things were looking a little wobbly. We were down that game.
Yeah, we were down 6-0.
When the Leyritz hit that home run.
Well, we were losing 6-0, and I remember players come in after the 5th inning. I said, "Guys, just let's cut the lead in half. Let's just cut the lead in half." And just, it was a good sign for me because we scored 3 runs. And
Then the game changed.
And then, yeah, it sort of got the momentum on our side.
They were making parade plans. I know I was at a hot dog stand. They're making parade plans, and they were chopping away. And I tell you, that stadium was in really. That stadium needed 55,000 therapists.
Yeah.
In the ninth inning. They were really messed up. You know, you're up 6-0. You're going to be up 3-1. You're like, and all of a sudden it's like.
And then Leyritz and
2-2.
You know, Waller's. It was interesting. He was a little late on the fastball, and for some reason he thought Jimmy was on the fastball. You know, so we threw him a slider, and he hung it, and he had a 3-run homer, and then we.
That was it.
Yeah.
97. You know, you lose against Cleveland. Mariano gives up that home run. He's hanging his head. And he tells a story, I mean, when you got together with him and Mel in the offseason, you know, to kind of, you know, basically stake your claim that you're my guy. How did Mariano's, I mean, we talk about his career that he's had, and really I think did it start with that failure maybe?
Well, you know, to me, I think there was one thing I was reading, that you know you can't succeed unless you fail.
Yep.
I mean, and that's part of success is being able to pick yourself up and move, and because you learn from failure. But the interesting part, you know, obviously, you know, we had Wetland, and Wetland, you know, became a free agent because we knew after what Mariano did out of the bullpen in '96 as a setup man that why not? And you know, he was a little uncomfortable when we started this thing in '97. In fact, there was one game at Yankee Stadium where we were playing Oakland, and it's never a good sign when you bring your closer in and he faces the same guy twice. That is not a good sign. And he came in and was hanging his head, you know, and I said, Mo, I said, you may do that a couple more times. I said, but you're still the closer. And then, of course, you know, Sandy Alomar's home run in the playoffs in Cleveland, got behind 2 balls, no strikes, and he, in his mind, he said, I'm going to throw a strike, and boom, hit a home run. Well, when that was game 4, and then game 5, you know, we lost, and I remember Paul O'Neill doubled, and then Bernie made the last out. Yeah. I had to peel Bernie off the steps because he never wanted to come in the clubhouse after that game. But we flew back to New York, and Mel and I both got Mariano on the tarmac under the plane, you know, that night, and just said, you know, we never would have gotten there without you to begin with. And then the following spring, which is what you're referring to, we sat him on the tarp at Legends Field in Tampa, and we just wanted to make sure that there was, you know, that he wasn't going to be defensive all of a sudden because of what happened to him.
He thinks that was like a turning point, aha moment for him. Well, because, you know, he had so much respect for you, but he felt like that vote of confidence was sincere, and he said it gave him the wing underneath, the wind right, it just gave him all the strength he needed. Well,
you know, to me, I think you know, media, I think, is responsible more than anybody with this, is the fact that, you know, because players make so much money that there's not blood running through their veins. They're sort of robotic. And the one thing I always felt is that, you know, this game, baseball is loaded with negative statistics. I mean, your best hitters are hit 300, they fail 7 out of 10 times. I mean, you've heard that 100 times, but it's, so you really, the reinforcement, any kind of reinforcement, especially when you know that the ability is there, so anything you can do to try to reinforce that, that we're with you. I mean, I had Tino, you know, Tino used to be so tough on himself. He'd come in, you know, he'd be struggling, he's 0 for 8, 0 for 9, and meanwhile he made 3 great plays out there diving for balls and scooping balls up, and he'd be in there like this, you know, and I said, what's the matter? He said, well, I let everybody down. I said, no, Tino, I said, you made great defensive plays, but that wasn't good enough. And I said, let me ask you a question. And I pointed to Jeter over there. I said, let me ask you, if Derek went 0 for 13, would you think he was letting you down? You know, and he says, no. I said, well, I said, that's the way they feel about you. Yeah. I mean, but you lose sight of that when you're in that body, because you know, as a player, I always felt that I failed my players if I didn't my teammates if I wasn't able to knock in a big run or something.
One thing about Tino, there's nobody who used more bats than Tino.
I know.
I mean,
yeah.
We're happy about that, but we're the recipient like Tino. Did you ever use a bat twice? And Posado's another one. Oh God.
Posado, yeah.
I mean.
Posada hated me the first 2 years. He hated me because I didn't catch him a lot. And he just had well, of course, the first year he wasn't with us anyway. I mean, he came sort of in September because we had Leyritz and Girardi. And, and then the next year we brought Georgie along, but I wanted to bring him along slowly because Girardi, to me, he was my key guy when I came on board. If we're going to have good pitching, and I know Mike Stanley is a great hitter, he had 20-something home runs the year before, but if we're going to win, it's going to rely on our pitching, and if you're going to have a good pitcher, you need good defensive catcher. Yeah. And so Joe was really one of the top priorities when we came here.
When you think about both those guys, they have level of their competitive spirit and the work ethic on both of them. Really, you don't realize with Georgie how I didn't realize how competitive. He just is one serious.
Oh, he's so passionate. He's so passionate, and yet when the postseason comes or bases are loaded, he is so good under pressure.
Yeah.
So good under pressure. I mean, he used to have some drag down fights with Duque. I mean, these two guys. These guys come to blows almost in the dugout between innings in the games Duque was pitching because they disagree on what should be called. And then I'd see them after the game. They're just about hand in hand walking to a restaurant. But it was never boring. I want to tell you that. But Georgie, in fact, Georgie, our dinner, our other fundraiser in New York here is November 14th, and we're honoring Georgie.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
Because it's 10 years from the '03 World Series. And we have a special tribute to Aaron Boone. He's going to be there also.
Oh, nice, nice. Are you a preparation guy? You're sitting in the dugout, like kind of cool. Almost like you could be on the beach. Meanwhile, it's like the ninth inning, it's 2-2, and I'm like out of my mind. But are you a preparation guy? Has it been because you thought of all that, or because you got Zimmer right there, and you feel like between the two of you got it covered, or?
Well, I always look calm. I mean, if you're next to Zimmer, you're going to look calm too.
Well, one thing. I mean, you got to give you a lot of credit for is, I mean, you had an unbelievable managerial staff. You picked great.
I mean, that's what sort of gives you a little security blanket. I know there are managers or people who think that managers shouldn't hire people that may be a threat to them. That may want to have the ambition of being a manager. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to hire as many of the smartest people I know, and if they're going to take my job, it's my fault, not theirs. And so I surrounded myself with people that I trusted, and because I delegate a lot. The hitters, the hitting coach, the pitching coach. I mean, I relied so much on Mel. He was,
maybe
wonderful.
Best pitching coach maybe ever.
Well, I mean, in my lifetime, obviously, in my managing career, he made my career as far as that goes. Because he's the one that was never really. He's the one that really performed well under pressure, all except the day that Todd, his son, was pitching against us in the postseason. And his poor wife was sitting up there trying to, and the cameras are in her face. Who you rooting for, your husband or your son? That type of thing. But Mel really performed well, and it was tough. It was a tough cookie.
98. Oh, I mean, unbelievable year. What was going on? And was it just basically put them out on the field because they just knew they were going to win, or was some things you had to pull together?
No, it was interesting because everybody just had a bad taste in their mouth in '97. Because we felt we were better than Cleveland, and they beat us. And these guys came to spring training with this just this passion to show people that we were, and show themselves basically that we were better than that. And we didn't start out very well. I mean, we started on the road. We lost
the West Coast.
Yeah, we lost 4 out of 5 games. Yeah, Yeah, I got plenty of calls that, you know, I'm being fired and all this stuff. You know, of course, when we came back home, I think it was 4 and 5 on the road trip, or 3 and 4, whatever. We almost caught up, and George says, "You're my man." I said, "Okay." You know. And then to turn out, we won 114 games, which was crazy.
Crazy.
And then, you know, go into the World Series, I mean, the postseason, and we won 11 more games, and it was nuts.
The competitive spirit. I mean, anybody stick out? You know, was it some unusual competitive spirit at that point, or was it just everyone?
You know, when you think of passion, you think of Paul O'Neill. Paul was, I think George named him perfectly when he called him the Warrior.
Yeah.
Because he certainly was that. I mean, you go back, I think it was the '99 World Series when his dad had passed away. And I remember talking to his wife, Neville, before the game that night, and she says, "You got to find a way to make him play tonight," because he was
really down.
He was really down. And in fact, when we all gathered at home at the mound after we won Game 4, you know, he was basically, you know, crying in my arms, you know, because he was thinking of his dad. But it was such a good group. And you know, when we lost in 2001, and you know, and all of a sudden, that was the end. You know, Tino was gone, O'Neill was gone, you know, Knobloch left, Brocious, basically retired, and so it was a big letdown for everybody. But you know, and of course Jeter, you know, his rookie year in '96. I've never seen a young player just take the team without, you know, willingly wanting people to have him as the leader, but come August, September, everybody was looking for him to do something, and he did it most of the time.
Regrets. You know, yeah, a million situations, a million...
Regrets as far as...
Just in-game, things you would have done.
You know, there were a couple. I think the last game, really the last, no, not the last game I managed, but the one in Cleveland in '07, when we had the bugs on the field.
Yeah.
I kicked myself in the ass for not going to the umpire and say, "I'm taking my team off the field." I really.
That was a team you probably could have won with.
Yeah, I think so.
You were really close. I mean, that was
think
a very
so.
good team.
But that, you know, that was because Jobber at that time, you know, he was unhittable, but he couldn't. Those bugs just.
Oh, it's a killer.
He looked in. He says, "I can't see," and I sent the trainer out. You know, because I figured he can help him. Little did I know that when he was spraying this stuff on him, it was like filet mignon for the bugs, and because that really wasn't a way to approach them. But that was the one regret. The other one was '04, when we had, and I get very nervous losing a game in the postseason, because I know how quickly momentum can switch. And so I remember I was with Mel, and I said to him, you know, when we had the 1-run lead in the 8th inning in Game 4, I said, I want to win this game, and I'm going to go with Mariano. And he says, fine. So, because it was the middle of their batting order coming up in the 8th inning, so we got them out 1, 2, 3. And then the 9th inning, Millar was leading off, and I came this close to just telling Mel to just go tell Mo not to get too fancy. And what I mean by fancy, just don't try to be too perfect.
You know, Millar was just trying to get a walk.
Just don't try to be. No, he's trying to get a home run. But I said, I just wanted him not to try to be too perfect. And I didn't do it based on the fact that the last time he had faced him, which was a couple of games ago in Yankee Stadium, he struck him out on 4 pitches or something. You know, so I just talked myself out of it. And then I realized that was Yankee Stadium. This was Fenway, where you have to be a little more careful because it's a smaller ballpark. You know. But aside from that, you know, in '04, and I never did get a World Series ring from the Red Sox, the fact that I helped them win the World Series in '04. But we had a 1-run lead in the 9th inning in Game 4, a 2-run lead in the 8th inning in Game 5. We had, we got beat by an opposite field 3-run homer in Game 6. And then Game 7, forget it.
How tough was it to make the decision? You had all that dilemma of who to pitch.
Well, it wasn't really no dilemma. In Game 7,
yeah,
there was really no dilemma. I didn't have many options. I had Vasquez or Brown because Duque wasn't available for us, and I give Kevin Brown. I know he wasn't very popular here, but I give him credit because right after the game I got him in the lunchroom, and a lot of the players were in there, and I just looked him in the eye. I said, "You got to tell me," and he looked me right in the eye. He said, "I want the ball." So I just went that way, and yeah, but again, you lose 3 games in a row, and you guys are on your heels a little bit. So
start questioning. There's one last thing on 2001 World Series. One of the great World Series.
Best I've ever, and we lost it obviously, but it was the best one because of 9/11. I mean, the emotion that was involved, getting there.
Were you thinking about bringing Stanton in? Is that a possibility of maybe bringing Stanton in the 8th inning? Just to face the...
Oh, no.
You always wanted to go with the Mo?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, no, Mo, you look how many times he pitched, 2 innings. And again, it was the same situation as Game 4 with the Red Sox. They're middle of their batting order, which is really, you want your best to face their best. So and the interesting part is, it's, what is it, a 1-1 tie or a 2-2 tie? I think it was 1-1, I'm not even sure. But, it's just tie game, and it's National League rules. So the pitcher's spot is coming up, and Zimmer's standing there with me, and he says, "Who are you going to bring in?" I said, "Mendoza." This game is tied on the road. He says, "Why not Mo?" I said, "Well, because I need somebody to save it. When we get a lead, I need somebody to save the game." And I said, "The only way I can do that," I said, "is if Soriano hits it." And as soon as I said it, we hit a ball in the ballpark. And I really felt I was blessed because now I have no decisions to make. I bring him in. Yeah. But thinking back in retrospect, if that didn't happen, that was good advice. I should have brought in Mariano, and that home run saved me from probably making a very bad mistake, because if you bring, and not that I didn't have confidence in Mendoza, but he wasn't better than Mariano, that if you wind up losing the game and your best pitcher never gets a chance to pitch, that was the wrong decision to make. So I never had a chance to screw that one up.
Hall of Fame. You're well respected, as a player, well respected as a manager. There's a lot of talk about you getting in the Hall soon. What does that mean? And
I'm sure if it happens that I'm going to be, proud as I can be, but it's just really something that I have never spent a lot of time thinking about, only because I had no control over it, other than doing the best I can all the time. It's somebody else's decision on what they think, where I belong. But I'm sure, as I said, if this happens, that I'll have cotton mouth and all that stuff in talking about it. And I think I think this year, because they don't vote on this category, but every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think this December, they vote, and it's going to be interesting. You're going to have La Russa, you have Bobby Cox, and myself are all coming up for a vote this December.
We can't get anybody else in. It seems like, so it's a good thing. You know what I realized, though? You get spoiled. You win 4 out of 5 years, and you get 6 out of 8. 6 out of 8 years you're in the World Series.
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy. And you start, you take that for granted, and you realize how hard it is to win. And it's not like you won with, you won with some, there's some teams you had troubles with, injuries. And you realize now, we all realize, like, it's really hard to win.
Well, you know what? We won with people who were pretty likable because they always came home dirty from the ballpark every day.
Yeah.
Because they worked their tails off. And my first meeting in '96, my first year, because I had, the one thing about being around the game a long time, and you watch all sports and you watch all teams celebrate, and then you're just like watching somebody else eat a hot fudge sundae. You know, it's not a lot of fun. And you know, you watch football and the Chicago Bears won, and then they're never heard from again, or this team wins and they're never heard from again, and that always stuck with me, you know. So I had said every one of my coaching staff had been to the World Series. All 6 of them had been in the World Series.
Important?
Well, it was for me, and I had mentioned that in the meeting, and I said, guys, I don't want to win 1 World Series, I want to win 3 in a row. You know, and
in '96?
In '96, before we started. Wow. And it was basically that thing always stuck with me, that instead of celebrating it, let's keep working at it, you know, and these guys always did. They never had enough of winning. It was, and obviously the more you do it, the tougher it is to do, especially when you're talking about '98. You know, winning all those games. If we don't win the World Series that year, nobody remembers you won 114 games.
You're right.
Got to tell you a quick story how spoiled you get. In 2001, 2002, we go to spring training, and you know, before we start playing the games, and you know, I'm giving autographs because people lined up for watching us take batting practice and stuff. So I'm signing. This gentleman comes down, and I sign for him. He says, "You'll do better this year." Well, at that point, I realized getting to Game 7, the 9th inning with a lead, wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized we were all spoiled because of what had taken place previously.
I think you know, and it's funny when you finish your career with the Yankees. I think you've always had the respect. I mean, this town always really, I could say, truly loved you. But I think the respect and really appreciation for what you accomplished and what you did, for the consistency, is now more full in bloom than it maybe was 5 years ago. You know, when you first left, because you don't realize, you keep thinking, you know, we should just keep winning. We're going to keep winning. But then, you know, you realize, like, it takes a special kind of leadership and formula to keep winning, and it's not easy.
No, it's not easy, and that's the one thing well, there were a lot of things I was proud of here, and the fact that we got to the postseason every year, you know, even when we had no chance of winning the division, they fought like hell to get to postseason, a wild card team, and
yeah, it's incredible.
it was magical. It really was. And unfortunately, you know, when I left, it was just a matter of I didn't know how to say goodbye, and I don't think the Yankees did either. And it just, you know, it ended up ugly, but everything's fine now. I mean, they can't keep me out of the clubhouse now. I got my credentials, so they don't.
I like that. All right, Jessica. I mean, I feel like we could talk to you all night. I mean,
this is
unbelievable.
Fun. Like being in my living room, and when trust me, when I'm in Cincinnati, my wife's family, this is about our living room. This is people. What do we got?
I think we take a few Q&A.
Oh yeah.
We do.
Fire it up.
Okay, let's do it. Yep.
So I have 2 questions for you. You caught Spahn, you hit against Koufax, Seaver, and Gibby were your era. Who was the best pitcher you saw? If you could name one, comes top of your head.
Well, Koufax and Gibson. I mean, Koufax didn't scare me because he's left-handed, but I couldn't hit him. You know, I hit a couple of home runs off him, but it certainly didn't make a difference in the game. And Koufax, I mean, and Gibson was. He just, I remember hitting off him with the bases loaded and nobody out in the first inning one day, and I really didn't strike out a lot, and I knew I could hit a sacrifice fly, you know. And he threw 3 pitches that I swear jumped over my bat, each one of them. I swung and missed at all 3 of them.
How tough was it working for the boss, Joe?
not as tough as a lot of people think, but you have to understand that I got George on the back nine. Billy never wanted to be told what to do. I mean, that played right into his wheelhouse, and they would go at it tooth and nail. I always understood that George was the boss, and I remember Joe Garagiola told me one time, if you take his money, you have to take his crap. So, you can't pick and choose. You can't pick and choose the part you want to keep and the part you want to throw away. So I really, not that I didn't have an issue here one time when we agreed to do something with a player and all of a sudden he did something and didn't tell me, and that aggravated me. But aside from that, I never had any late night calls. I never had any calls in the dugout. In fact, I probably called him more than he called me. Which disarmed him in a lot of ways. George, what am I doing wrong? I'd say to him, and you'll be all right. But there was one meeting I got to tell you about. I was recuperating from my cancer surgery.
What am I doing wrong? That's good.
I was recovering from recuperating, I should say, from my cancer surgery, and Zimmer was the interim manager, which. Probably I should have named somebody else because Zim and George were just too close, and he took everything so personal. So we lost a terrible game. It was an ugly game. We weren't very good. I think it was a day game, and he wants everybody upstairs. I was at the I didn't know if I was ever going to recover because I'm watching the games with George up in his box, okay? But I knew it was time. When I had enough of that, I had to go back and manage. But he got everybody in his office, and George has this round, it's a table, really. It's his desk.
Everybody mean the team or the manager?
Just all the, no, not players. Uniform, bullpen people and, any one of our staff. And so I always positioned myself next to George because I always felt that I could diffuse stuff. And I think Zim was here or over here, but he was right in this area. And Mel was over there on the couch because there weren't enough rooms for all the enough chairs around the table for all the people. And the first thing George says, if anybody in here thinks they're doing the best they can, well, you can leave now. Well, Zimmer left. And George was so pissed off that, and I just had to say, George, no, you didn't mean to say what you said, because he was doing the best he could. You meant to say, there's somebody in there that doesn't think we could do better or something like that. But you didn't mean that. He still didn't want him to leave. But he went downstairs. His wife thought he was fired already. And they went home. They went home. But that, so George was tough. And it's interesting. I talked to Mattingly, and he has probably as good a temperament as anybody can have. And he sort of liked it. He thought George kept you on edge, which is true. George kept you on edge. Even though you won and now you beat the Mets in 2000, which you figured was nirvana, but that wasn't good enough. What are we going to do next year? And he did keep you on edge. You were sort of frustrated because he never said nice going, I had a good relationship with him. It was very tough when I said goodbye to him, and he was the first one I said goodbye to. And I was choked up, and he was crying, and but I just feel very blessed that I had that opportunity. He gave it to me.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Is there one over there? Yep.
Hi. Hi.
You've clearly spent a lot of time on the field as a player and then also as a manager. I was wondering if there's anybody that you were two ships passing where you would have really liked to have had them as a teammate, and then conversely as a manager, someone you would have liked to have had in your dugout, and someone you would have liked to have managed.
Oh, well. The one guy that always, well, I mean, you know, you get some of those guys that you know are real gamers. You want those guys on your team, like George Brett and those guys. There was one player that I was sort of gaga admiring, and that was Greg Maddux. And I did have an opportunity to manage him the last month of the season in 2008, and we went to the postseason together. And he was everything that you hoped he would be. You know, he wasn't overpowering. In fact, I think he's up for the Hall of Fame this year, too. He wasn't overpowering, but he found a way to beat you. It's like he read your mind. And I said, God, he's smart. And when I was managing Team USA this past spring, I brought him on as my pitching coach. And it was a great experience. I remember we had one situation where Beltran was the hitter for Puerto Rico, and we had first base open, and my closer, the kid from Atlanta, Kimbrell, Craig, and I said, you want to walk? You know, you want to walk Beltran? He says, yeah. He says, wait a minute. He said, let's try throwing him 2 high fastballs just to see if he swings at him. I said, go tell him. So he went out to tell Kimbrell. First pitch he threw was high fastball. He popped it up. He said it worked. You know, he's great. He's great. And that's probably was my #1 guy that I wanted to be around and I had the opportunity to be around. Yeah.
I have a question over there in the back there.
Joe, don't you think every team in the league should have some kind of old-timers day to celebrate their own heritage? Wouldn't that, you know, maybe not play the game like the Yankees do, but should every team have one day where they celebrate their...
They used to, but you know, the history is so deep with the Yankees. The Dodgers are getting into doing that again. They did it in June. I think it was June 8th. The Dodgers tried to bring back some former Yankees because... And then, of course, the Dodgers. But, yeah, I think it would be good to do that because, to me, it always helps with the players. You know, when the players get a little taste and have them understand that the game started before they did, you know, I think it's a humbling experience and something to somebody to look up to and just sort of pick their brain. You know, the game has changed as we go along, and by far, the athletes we have playing today are so much better than we were because you know, they're in better shape. They're in better shape. You know, we never had any of the conditioning stuff that they have until the middle 70s, and they are in better shape. I'm not sure a lot of them understand and are as appreciative, maybe, of the opportunity that they're getting because there's a lot of entitlement out there that they think they have something coming to them. And it's not only baseball. I mean, I think it's just out there. And that's sad. That's sad because this is something you really have to. And another thing, I keep thinking the things I used to tell players in meetings. I said, you're only borrowing this, guys. You're going to have to give it back someday because you're only going to be able to do it from here to here. And I said, and I don't want you to get beyond this and then sit home and say, God, I wish I'd have worked harder. You know, I wish I could have been a better player. So, you know, you just try to remind them of that. But again, I'm talking to them as a 60-something-year-old at that time. And, you know, and I know when when I was 26, 27 years old, I certainly wasn't mature, unfortunately. But, you know, you try to have people benefit from your experience. And a lot of them take what you say to heart.
Last question there. Yeah, the Yankee you're from there.
Hi, Mr. Torre.
Hi.
As special as your relationship is with Derek Jeter, do you see anybody in the Yankee system that might be like a diamond in the rough you might think could pick up where he leads off after he retires? And would you ever wear Yankee pinstripes again?
Well, I did. I've been to old timers. This year I didn't go because I We were on a college tour with my daughter, so I didn't, that's the only reason I didn't go. But I've been there 2 years in a row. And you mean as far as?
It's not an old-timers game unless you're there.
Well, as I said, they invited me. Trust me, they invited me. And if it wasn't that something involved my daughter, I would have been there for Old Timers Day.
You read about that catch you made.
That was my other daughter. Yeah, my older daughter. That was a godsend. She.
Off the old
Yeah, well, that was something. Yeah. And she's very shyish, you know, and she's a school teacher. And for those who don't know, she was sitting there having some coffee in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and somebody called 911. There's a baby on the fire escape next door, and turns out this 13, 14-month-old boy was out there, and she called 911, and she was underneath, you know, talking to 911 and seeing that this child was moving around. And it turns out that the child had gotten out on the fire escape because they had one of those in-window air conditioners, and there was that soft spot on the side where I guess he crawled out. And
Crazy.
Oh, yeah. So he you know, started falling, and I think he tried, or he held on a little, not held on, just sort of broke his fall a little bit on like a metal awning, and then she caught him, which was incredible. Huh?
She looks just like
Yeah, she says, how do you do this? I said, what's that? She says, the people call me about media stuff. How do you do that? I said, you're on your own. You're doing great.
All right, guys, so we're going to wrap up and do photos now with Joe. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Joe, for
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.